going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ready Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn, and our guy, Mike Andrews of Nothing But Niners. We got a great show planned for you guys tonight, this evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Before we get into it, make sure you hit like and subscribe on the YouTube page. If you are not subscribed already, please do. It really does help. And if you are tuning in on X, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive or youtube.com/NothingButNiners. Tune in from there so we can see and interact with your comments. We're not ignoring you on X. We just can't see it. We're going to be going over the 49ers Bengals game, the acquisition of Chase Young, the bye week, a little look back. We're at the halfway point, and maybe a small look forward depending on where we're at with time. So you're not going to want to miss this show. Now that I got all that out, Matt, how you doing tonight?
Hey, a lot better than I was a couple days ago. A little bit of the stink of that loss has kind of come off. So, we're going into the bye week. There's been some moves made. There's at least an interesting couple of things going on. So kind of takes the sting out of the loss, and the 49ers hopefully can move on. But yeah, I'm doing good otherwise, man.
Yeah, exactly. It was a tough one. It was definitely a tough one. It seemed like the 49ers were just playing from behind the entire game on Sunday. But we got some exciting things going on. Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I went on my little vent session, a couple of hours ago on Nothing But Niners, and a little solo show, and got to get some things off my chest. So now I'm ready to talk with my guys, man. This is therapeutic for me. So I'm ready for my weekly therapy session. Let's get it rolling, man.
All right, let's do it. So obviously, let's start with the Bengals game. Unfortunately, the 49ers dropped their third straight game to the Cincinnati Bengals. This one at home. Something I was kind of, surprised by. I don't know why I should have been surprised, but Brock had not lost a home game prior to Sunday. So that was his first home loss. They lost 31-17. It was kind of a close game up until, unfortunately, Brock's first interception of the day. I know last game I kind of went over each and every drive or important. I'm not going to do that this much because we're kind of a few days removed. I'm sure you've already broken down the game as much as you guys want to. But my main takeaway from this game is, one, something needs to change on the defense, which I'm hoping just happened with the acquisition of Chase Young. And two, Brock Purdy, although making some bad mistakes, still is putting the 49ers in some good positions most of the time. It's those couple of back-breaking throws, that really screw the team in opportune times, unfortunately. Matt, what was your main takeaway from the loss versus the Bengals?
Yeah, I got two as well. A little bit different than yours. One, I think that we need to ease up on the talk of the 49ers as a legitimate Super Bowl contender at this point because of the holes that they have in key areas. Namely the offensive line and in the defensive backfield. Those two things are going to get the 49ers killed. And we've seen it against good quarterbacks. We've seen it against bad quarterbacks. When you get to the playoffs, it's all good quarterbacks for the most part. So it's going to be a tough road if they don't fix their defensive woes going forward. And number two, in terms of being elite, I'm out on Brock Purdy for now as an elite quarterback. I still think that he's good. I still think that he's good to very good, but he has something that I call Brett Favre syndrome, where the more he gets later into the game, the more he feels like he needs to make a play. And that is putting the ball in harm's way. And Brock Purdy does not have the physical ability to overcome that type of mentality. His arm is writing checks his ass can't catch. You know what I mean? Like it just, to me, there were a few throws. Obviously, the interceptions were bad. But even on some of the positive plays, right? The one where he rolls out to the right, throws all the way across his body to the left, and hits Kittle. That's a bad throw, dude. You cannot be making that throw. And I don't care that the outcome was good. The fact of the matter is that before that point, he hadn't been making those type of throws. And the one thing that sold me on Purdy more than other quarterbacks was he was keeping the ball out of harm's way for the most part. This hero ball stuff, without him being as physically gifted as others, is going to get him into trouble. Now, the caveat with that is I did notice that, one, against Minnesota, the interceptions were after a concussion. 2, he played after 6 days. And 3, he might have got concussed again. So this bye week couldn't come at a more opportune time for him. I think that, we'll see in the Jacksonville game what Brock Purdy does. But so far, when the game is out of reach or they're behind, Brock Purdy has a tendency to try to do too much, and I think that can get him into trouble in the future. So for right now, because he is a young quarterback and there is time to adjust, I'm just going to lay off the Brock Purdy is absolutely 100% a 10-year starter for the 49ers at this point. He's still good to very good, though.
Mike, same question. What were your takeaways? If you agreed, disagreed, please.
No, it's fine. I'm going to try to touch on just different things. That's all. I liked the play more. Not that it was good, but I liked the play more of the defensive line in this game. It kind of went how I expected it. You're not going to see a whole bunch of blitzing because you can't do that with a team that is 3 wide all the time. So I started to see the offensive line work together. We saw a couple of sacks where the edge guys were able to squeeze Burrow up to the center, and that's where those 2 big, penetrating defensive tackles were, and they were able to reel in a couple of sacks. I think that that was part of one of the things I was looking forward to in this game. Not saying that it was going to be successful all game long, but they'll realize, hey, if we let these guys just do what they're supposed to do, maybe we can get back to some of the basics. And so I'm hoping that goes on even further with the acquisition of Chase Young now. Hey, we have good guys on the edge. We got great guys on the edge, good guys on the interior. Now we can go ahead and see what this defensive line can actually do. And then the other thing that I took away from this game, the shine is coming off of Brock Purdy, and that's okay. But I don't think that the Niners, like what Matt said, I don't know if that the Niners are going to be just out on all quarterbacks going forward. I just don't think that's going to be the case. But there are still positives. People, we just got to see who he is, and I think that's what everyone's going to be back to, the evaluation point, where we thought we knew one way or the other. Everyone was just convinced he's not good enough. It was so definitive, and then it was, no, this guy's elite, and you guys just don't want to give it to him because he's never lost. And it's well, you got to look at what's happening, And I love what Matt said. I tell people all the time, fall in love with the process, not the results. That throw all the way across his body, terrible
He did that
thing.
twice.
Great result.
2 plays in a row.
Right. Yeah, great result. Terrible decision. So those are the things that we'll tend to straighten up. And this bye week came at a really, really good time for the team. That's the other positive. It's a really good time for a bye.
Yeah, agreed. We got a super chat from our guy before we start back. I thought Jimmy wins and Kyle was holding him back. On his birthday, basically comes out that Jimmy Garoppolo was benched for rookie Aiden O'Connell. Shout out to Jimmy. Hopefully you're doing all right. You made plenty of money.
I've seen 4 pictures of Aiden O'Connell, and he looks different in every single one of them. Every single one of them. Yeah. This kid, I have no idea who he is, what he looks like. Sometimes he's puffy and chunky. Sometimes he's got this weird mustache thing going on. Other times he's got I don't know, man. This kid, but the Raiders are shaking shit up over there, man. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So, quick thoughts on Brock Purdy. I agree. Maybe some of the shine's coming off of him, but there wasn't much help on the offensive side. Yes, Kittle had 100 yards. I think Ayuk had 100 yards, but I understand he played hurt, but I thought he was fully healthy this week. Christian McCaffrey, he's had 2 or 3 straight games now of kind of crappy run. Again, I'm aware Kyle kind of gets away from it, especially when they're down. He's not sticking to the run as much. But Brock threw for 365 yards and finished as the game's leading rusher with 57 yards on 6 carries, which I believe he became one of 22 quarterbacks in NFL history to throw for 350 plus and rush for 50 plus. So it's crazy. What we saw from him, extend plays. I think a lot of people had chalked that up to a minus on Brock. His athleticism would hold him back. I don't think we saw that on Sunday. I think if anything, we saw that help the team. But I agree with both of you guys in the sense that he does get that hero ball gene. And that was my whole comfortability going into this season with him is that the 49ers consistently won't have to put him in positions to elevate the team. It should be the other way around, where the team is putting him in positions where they can elevate him. He has a great defense. He's got a ton of stars around him. Brock Purdy shouldn't be the reason why you're winning these games. It should be the high-paid players around him. So that's my biggest problem with this team through 8 games. Matt, do you have anything to add?
I just think, yeah, I mean, you know, they got away from Christian McCaffrey running the ball because they had to, you know. They were put behind on the scoreboard very early, and they never caught up. So this is one of those things where you can't just, run the ball all the time. I mean, Christian McCaffrey averaged a very respectable 4.5 yards a carry on the ground. I don't think any of Brock's runs were designed runs. They were all scrambles. That plays a key role too. So if you take those runs out of it, I mean, they had I think 15 or 16 rushing attempts on the game because you're playing behind the score all the time. So Brock, of course, had to throw the ball. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan wants to do that. The other thing, too, is that it was very apparent that this offensive line has a lot of woes on it. It's just not good. I don't know if they need to. I feel like Jalen Moore is respectable, but I would want to see them try him on the opposite side of the line when Trent Williams comes back, because Colt McKivitz sucks. Like, he stinks, and they're going to get him killed. Aaron Banks is going to miss time. He has a turf toe injury. He's going to miss a couple weeks, which means it's even more patchwork. John Feliciano is going to have to start at the left guard position. We'll get into the moves they made at the deadline, but they didn't make the right moves. And I don't know. They say that it's hard to move offensive linemen, but Jacksonville just did it. So they got a guard, Ezra Cleveland from Minnesota, who would have helped the 49ers, believe it or not. I would rather have Ezra Cleveland at that right guard spot than Spencer Burford. No offense to Spencer Burford, but it's pedigree and ability and things like that. And you can hide some of McKivitz's faults if you have a guy that's really good next to him. It's the reason why Mike McGlinchey got drafted so high, because he played next to Quentin Nelson at Notre Dame, and Quentin Nelson took a lot off of his plate. It's the same reason why Aaron Banks looks a little bit worse for wear without Trent Williams, because Trent Williams hides a lot of that stuff. So I don't know. I just think that there was a lot more than just Kyle getting away from the run.
If Aaron Banks looks as good because of Trent Williams, isn't it fair to say that Burford looks worse because of McKivitz, not the other way around? Like, I think that if we had a good
that's true. That's true too.
Burford would look better.
That's true too. But that's why I'm saying I want to see what Jalen Moore looks like over there. And for me, I'm not indicting Burford in a vacuum. What I'm saying is, if you held up Burford and Ezra Cleveland and told me to pick one, I'd probably pick Ezra Cleveland.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. Go ahead, Mike.
Do you guys take any credence into George Kittle's comments at the presser? Outside zone runs versus running it up the middle, right? Like he said it very plainly. I took it as a shot at Kyle in the play calling. But he said, our very first run play, outside zone, 8 or 9 yards, seemed to be working, and then we just go away from it.
I do.
You guys think?
It's very. I don't want to say it's a sign that cracks are forming or anything like that, but I think it's definitely a sign of the frustration, because it's like, we've been doing this for so long and it's been working. Why are we getting away from it? Like, it literally, we just did it in this game, like you said, Mike, to start the game, and for some reason he gets away from it. And I do think a lot of the runs are up the middle, where that really only has success if you have a very strong offensive line. And like Matt just spent the last couple minutes saying, the 49ers don't have that right now. So they're not winning these one-on-one blocks. They're not pulling well. They're not doing any of these things to set up the runs up the middle, where your kind of outside zones would be more beneficial for you to run your backs, where you have tight ends that can chip. You have really good run blocking receivers that you could take advantage of. But for some reason, they haven't. They stop.
You guys looked at the depth chart for the team recently? I know that Matt said Feliciano might be stepping up, but the next guard up at the left side is actually Nick Zakel. So I don't know if he's going to get the start over Feliciano. It's going to be really interesting to see. But I mean, I guess the one positive is that there's no film on them in this system. So maybe it'll be a little bit of a plus. We can find out what their strengths are, and maybe Kyle can, scheme something up for whichever one of those two guys it is.
Yeah. Well, at least Kittle and Ayuk came through. I mean, they had good games. And a lot of it was Purdy extending plays and finding them downfield. And that's what I think is so frustrating about when he does make these mistakes and turns the ball over. It's like, man, you were just making some amazing throws. You were extending plays, finding players downfield, keeping your eyes downfield is really, really impressive stuff. And then you go 1st and goal from the 8 and toss it right into the linebacker's hands. It's like, and don't get me wrong, the linebacker made a hell of a play. He probably makes that play, I don't know, 3 out of 10 times. But still, you can't do that, especially because we later found out, there's an illegal man downfield. He couldn't pass it regardless. It's tough. But I do think that with more experience, hopefully these things can be ironed out and kind of siphoned out of this game, because the good is really good. It's just the bad is really bad, and more importantly, really at really bad times. That's kind of the most excruciating part is, okay, you can't throw an interception when you just went down 7 or 2 possessions, and then again, back-to-back drives. Like, it's really tough. Is there any? Go ahead.
Sorry, my last question for you guys. I know Matt said it, and everyone's been saying, when we get down too many points, you have to kind of abandon the run. But I think that we weren't really out of the game to the point where we had to abandon the run. Like the lead got really bad late in the game. It wasn't ever like a 3-point deficit, three possession deficit in the first half. I don't think we needed to abandon the run at those times that we did it. Like I felt like they got away from it a lot too soon, and they didn't need to. They kind of it seems to be like if a drive doesn't go the way we want it, they go into panic mode. Or if first down doesn't go the way we want it, they go immediately into panic mode. And it's just like, all right, we have to throw. And that's not the case. Like this team, it's for years. Like it'll be a close game and we'll be down at 1 score or whatever, but we're still running the ball. And it's like, dude, like we used to think Kyle didn't know the play clock, or not the play clock, like the time. Like, dude, shouldn't we be showing more urgency? You're still running the ball. He's gotten completely away from that, and it was the key to success before. Just continue to wear teams down, wear them down, no matter what the score was. Keep running the ball effectively, and now it's just like, oh well, we're not doing that now. We're going to stop running the ball as much as we were, and I don't get it. We were down, yes, but I just felt like it was too early to abandon the run.
Just to add on to that, Mike, it was a 1-score game up until the 13-minute mark in the 4th quarter.
Right.
It was 17-10, and then I believe there was a turnover, and then 1 play later it was Jamar Chase touchdown that pushed it to 24-10. So basically the entire game was within 1 score. 3/4 of the game, I should say, was within 1 score. And then it got to 2 scores. And
right.
Yeah, but I agree. This game in particular, I don't think they should have gone away from it as much, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but what are you going to do, though? You're running out of offensive line of Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks on a bum ankle, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford, and fucking Colt McKivitz. And you want to run behind that line all game? Like, I don't think so, dude.
But that's what the best blocking tight end in the NFL is for. That's what Dwelly's for. Those guys are good blockers as well. Like there's other options other than just the 5 of those guys.
Yeah, but we can't have it both ways though, right? Didn't Kyle get criticized last year for putting a backup tight end on Hassan Reddick, and that's what got Brock Purdy injured? And now we're saying no, just run behind your tight ends. Like, I don't know about that. And by the way, Kyle Juszczyk got blown up on a 3rd and 1. Kyle Juszczyk got blown up because the inside run blocking was shit. And you can only run outside zone so many times before they adjust. And once they adjust, they're going to force you to run up the middle. And if you can't run up the middle because these guys can't block, Spencer Burford with his 46.3 PFF grade overall, which is terrible, these guys, what are you going to do? And I think you're looking at it like that. Besides the fact that up until the point where Brock Purdy started throwing interceptions, he was eating. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to take you're down a score or whatever, that's fine. You can run the ball if you want. Yeah, mix it up, throw some stuff in there. There are plenty of times where they get, a first down throw that goes for like 6 yards, second down, they run it, no gain, and then third down, Brock Purdy picks it up. At some point or another, when you're down, you just end up getting away from that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think it's easy to look in hindsight and say they should have run the ball more, but without knowing exactly what the play calls were and like not having watched back the game film, I can't really tell you how effective they were, right? Did Christian McCaffrey average 4.5 because 2 or 3 runs went really big and then the rest were trash, or what? So that's where I'm at.
Right. I think this team in general, the past 2 weeks, the identity's been a little different than what we're used to. Maybe I'm wrong by saying that, because this season the identity's been different than what we've seen out of previous Kyle teams. And I think that's a testament to how much he trusts Brock Purdy, and he allows him to drop back and hit the intermediate to deep throws more than we've seen previously. So maybe I'm wrong by saying that, but I just think that like the screen passes aren't there for some reason. The outside zone runs that Mike brought up aren't there. And they're not even being attempted. So I just think and again, I'm wrong by saying it wasn't working, because like Matt said, it was working. It was working. They were in the game up until the third quarter when a turnover got them out of the game. So it's tough to really criticize, because for the most part, it was a competitive outing by the 49ers. It just got away from them at the end because of self-inflicted mistakes. I think that's really what it came down to. Do you guys come away from that game? There's that metric that I forget the account tweets out how badly a team got beat. Like they take away like the garbage time stats and like really like, was it a bad beat? Was it a close game and they lost? And this was the worst beat of the 49ers season. Like the Cleveland and Minnesota games were both very negative, if anything, tilted towards the 49ers. Like they should have lost this game, but they did. This one was clearly the Bengals beat the 49ers. How did you guys come away from this game feeling about the team? Like
the Bengals actually beat the 49ers in all phases of the game. This was one where they got their ass whooped from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Like Joe Burrow carved them up. Guys, this team scored 31 points on the 49ers, who last year and up until a certain point this year had a top 5 defense or whatever it was. They came into this game dead last in total offense. Dead last. And they just moved the ball up and down the field like the 49ers were standing still. That's just unacceptable, and then, the offense gets behind and we get the turnovers late. For a while there, the offense was making some plays, just not enough, right? 17 points for the second week for the offense.
In a row.
Third.
Unacceptable. You just can't have that level of production. This is a team that was coming off of how many 30-point games in a row? We're looking at nine straight 30-point games. And then 17, 3 in a row. Not good for a head coach who's supposed to be an offensive guru. Not good for a defense that's supposed to be top, however, whatever, getting walked all over. Just a bad game, man, all the way around. It was painful to watch, and something's got to change. The bye week came at a perfect time because this team is reeling right now.
Yeah. Can I say real quick, and then we can move on to the Chase Young acquisition? Back-to-back weeks where quarterbacks have had their season best performances against the 49ers defense. Like Kirk Cousins looked unstoppable. Joe Burrow looked unstoppable. There was a play. I went to this game with our guy Christian, and there was a play early on where really could have changed the whole outcome of the game, or at least changed the early half outcome, where Joe Burrow, I'm sure you guys know exactly what play I'm talking about. Third down, goes to pass, gets Nick Bosa in his face, gets Armstead literally draped over his back, somehow gets out of it, keeps his eyes downfield and hits his receiver for a big gain. They end up scoring on that drive. Should have been a sack and a punt. I'm sorry, those defensive linemen are paid too much money to just not make that play. Eric Armstead is a redwood tree out there, and Joe Burrow's not that big. There's absolutely no excuse for him to get out from underneath you. So I don't know if it's an effort thing. I don't know if it's a mojo thing. I don't know if it's a just bad luck thing. But the entire stadium's cheering, thinking they just sacked the hell out of this guy on third down. They got a punt. And then we see Joe Burrow step out of it and hit his receiver down the field. So something has to change, because even if the offense was playing a little better and maybe didn't have some mistakes, I don't know if they win this game because of how poorly the defense played most of the game. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't get to the quarterback. I mean, the pressures were there, and they did have a couple of sacks, but it just seemed like they're half a second too slow. And I know Kyle Shanahan said that after the game, that what stood out after rewatching the film was how tired his team looked, how slow. Dre Greenlaw doesn't look healthy out there. He took an extra 2 to 3 seconds to get up after every tackle. And I think they said this week, Kyle said that he has a sprained shoulder or something like that. So maybe that's what it is, but they just looked slow. They looked defeated. They looked beat. They looked tired. So I agree with both of you guys. This bye week couldn't have come at a more perfect time. Any other thoughts on this game before we move on to Chase Young?
Penalties were down.
It's true.
I guess, like
well,
you can be positive from it.
Caveat, that's because Ward was so bad that even when he was committing penalties, he was also getting roasted. So they just took the result of the play. Right. So
there was that 2-play sequence where they threw the ball at him for a first down. Ward breaks it up. They don't throw the flag. The entire coaching staff's pissed off, the Bengals. And they go right back to it the next play. Ward does the same exact thing, and the ref throws the flag. It's like, what are you thinking? You got away with one there, dude. Like, he's a walking penalty. He's literally a walking penalty out there. And I don't know if without the benefit of a ferocious pass rush, he doesn't look the same. I mean, any secondary isn't going to look the same without the pass rush getting home. But he specifically is stinking up that secondary, which sucks because he was the big signing. He's supposed to be your top corner, and he's out there getting flagged. He's just too grabby. I don't know what it is. He's just way too physical out there, and he definitely needs to clean that up moving forward. If only they had hired somebody who's a secondary guru to coach that up.
I think that's part of the problem with what's going on with Ward. They're playing this soft baby shit zone, and by the time the receiver gets to him, he's on his back pedal, like he's on his back foot, because that's not his game, you know? And by the time you give this receiver this whole open space to work with, right, and then you expect him not to try to get into position. So some of that, of course, is on Ward for being undisciplined or whatever, but some of that's schematic too, you know, with the soft zone that they're playing, giving the wide receivers all this space in front of you. You know, it's easier to sell that either you're going deep or, you know, you sell deep and you go short and then you're on your back. You start out on your back foot. You know what I mean? And that's been we see with Lenore falling down on that play. We see when you give them too much space to work with, it becomes trouble. And, you know, the safeties have been, you know, it's not like the safeties are getting beat over the top or whatever, but they're also not making a ton of plays either. They seem to be not in a position where they're creating an impact on the game. So these corners are truly on an island. And, you know, you do that long enough against a team that has as many talented people. Mike brought up, you know, it's not just Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They got Tyler Boyd, you know, Joe Mixon is a capable pass catcher. You got all these people on this team. Ozama or what, you know, there's just so many people on the team that Joe Burrow can go to, and you're having these guys out on an island all by themselves because the way that the secondary is working, it's not tenable. It's unsustainable for a successful team.
Yeah. My last comment is this. Matt said it in our pregame show or the preview show where we got screwed by the schedule makers there. And the Niners did not do themselves any favors by traveling back and forth between, you know, you go from home, you fly to Cleveland, you go back home, you fly to Minnesota, you fly back home, and then the other team is coming in on a bye week. I mean, that was terrible, absolutely terrible. So, I mean, not making excuses for them, but you start to understand why the team is tired. You know, like they're doing so much in such a small amount of time. It's like, dude, they're coming in well rested, coming off of their bye week. Like it was going to be tough no matter how we looked at it.
Yeah, agreed. It was, and we talked about this when the schedule came out. There was that rest meter, you know, whatever the hell they determined which team is screwed the most, and the 49ers were last in rest benefit, whatever it's called. And even this week, they get a bye week, and you're thinking, fantastic, the 49ers are finally going to have an edge up on a team The Jags have a bye week at the same exact time, so they don't even have an advantage. If anything, they have a disadvantage because they now have to go across the country again and face the Jags in Jacksonville, who's won 5 straight. So we'll see how that shapes up. Last thing on this game. Brock Purdy made 2 really, really good throws to George Kittle in the middle of the field. One right before half when the 49ers, I believe, got a turnover. And the other one, I think it was in the third quarter, but they're absolutely beautiful throws that I was really impressed by. He just put it right on the money. One, he led Kittle in the inside. That way he can get broken up by the defender coming on the outside. It was impressive. I know a lot of people are kind of down on Purdy right now, but I just wanted to give him some kudos for that because they're a nice.
Kittle dropped one of those nice throws too, didn't he?
He did, yeah. And Ayuk let one bounce right off his face mask. Probably cost the team 3 points, but it is what it is. All right, let's get into Chase Young, fellas. Chase Young, the former number 2 overall pick, the former Ohio State Buckeye, is now a San Francisco 49er. The 49ers, right before the trade deadline on Tuesday, gave up a compensatory 3rd-round pick to acquire the pass rusher from the Washington Commanders. Mike, when you saw this come across your phone, what was your initial reaction?
Told you guys we were going to get Chase Young. I tweeted it out like week 1 or something like that. Chase Young is going to look great in scarlet and gold. I said next year, I'll take it if we get it early. I thought he was going to make it all the way to free agency, and the Niners are going to make a move for him. F it. This is way cheaper. And if he doesn't fit, no harm, no foul. We can let him go, and we'll get that 3rd-round pick right back if he signs somewhere else at the end of it. So it was a very, very extremely low risk, nothing but high reward here. So it's not going to hurt us at all. I was so excited about that, man. Oh, look at that. You found the tweet. Did you have that bookmark just for the show?
I didn't, but you don't tweet much, so it was easy to find.
It was very, very early in the season, and I was just extremely excited about that, man. That was great. That was absolutely wonderful. And what this does for the depth at the pass rushing position is just going to be completely incredible. This is going to allow, we were depending on guys like Gregory and hoping that Jackson would show up, and now they just get pushed further down the depth chart because Chase Young is good against the run as well as pass rusher, and he's been playing healthy. One of the things that I didn't realize, I know that he had that significant injury, but John Lynch broke it down like he's playing, 45, 50, 60 snaps a game. He's not just someone out here that's working his way back from an injury. He is in there and he is in full go mode. So that's got to be absolutely wonderful, man. That is great. This is one of the best trades. We'll see what the results are, but as far as the process goes, A+ move by the 49ers.
I believe he immediately becomes the 49ers leading sack totaler, right?
Yes.
With 5 sacks through 8 games. Matt, what was your initial reaction to this trade?
It didn't move the needle for me at all. Not at all. In a vacuum, if I look at the trade and what they gave up for it, just without looking at anything else, great trade. Fantastic trade. But getting another defensive lineman when you have so much invested into it already, I believe he is now the 6th first-round pick that the 49ers have on that defensive line. It's too much. You're throwing water into the ocean. You're throwing water into the ocean. You have it's the classic, your boat is sinking, and instead of looking for ways to plug the hole, you're just trying to scoop the water out. It's just, how much are you going to put into the defensive line? If they would have made a corresponding move to get a corner in here or an offensive lineman or done something else, I would be more excited about it. But the fact that they put it in the one position where they have put so many eggs into this one basket, it just doesn't do it for me. Right? Like, okay, cool. Chase Young is going to come in. But when those defenders aren't fucking covering still, and those offensive linemen still aren't fucking blocking, what do you think is going to happen? It's not like Chase Young has this incredible get off. He's really good. Don't get me wrong. But it's not like he has blazing speed that he's throwing people out of the way, this and this and that. All the teams have to keep doing is what they're doing. Get the ball out of your hands quick to your playmakers in space. Let the cornerbacks get cooked. You march down the field. You keep the offense off the field. You force Brock Purdy to play from behind where he's going to be more liable to make mistakes. Congratulations. That's the formula for beating the 49ers because it's happened 3 straight weeks. And instead of addressing the areas you need to address, you go and say, why don't we get another first round edge rusher? It's great that you're renting them essentially for free. That's what they're doing with Randy Gregory. The other trade that they made, guess what? Defensive line. But this does not move the needle for me at all. No slight to Chase Young. I'm sure he's going to come in here and do good things. But when the results aren't what 49er fans expect and they start to sour on this whole thing, I'm going to be sitting here crowing from the rooftops. I fucking told you so, because they need so much more than another edge rusher that I don't know what they're doing. John Lynch has some kind of some hard on for edge rushers, I guess. I don't know. He always talks about how the front seven was super important to his career. I mean, he's banking his entire GM career on Chase Young and the defensive line getting him out of trouble. Steve Wilkes is too, but I just don't see it happening. So for me, in a vacuum, like I said, if I'm only looking at the move, it's a great move, but it wasn't what this team needed in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. To me, I was excited by the trade.
You ain't gonna hit my thing. You ain't gonna hit my thing.
Oh, you're right. Here, let me hit it. Let me hit it. It's been a while. There we go. Matt rant for the night. All right.
Can I address this comment before you jump in?
Yeah.
The greatest 49. We've all wanted a bookend to Bosa, Matt, and now we potentially have it. So saying it didn't move the needle at all is crazy, but I respect your opinion, brother. Look, here's why it doesn't move the needle. You had an opportunity to basically what the 49ers did is saying, our second round pick last year, Drake Jackson, he's doo-doo. We don't want him. He doesn't matter. Randy Gregory, not what we thought. He was free too, so it doesn't matter, right? You had an opportunity to move Drake Jackson, who another team, he's still fresh enough out of the draft that the luster isn't all the way off yet. You could have moved him for something. You could have moved Javon Kinlaw, who's in a walk year, for something, because Javon Kinlaw is not getting a ton of play. You paid Javon Hargrave, and you're paying Eric Armstead to do that job. They had so much depth on this line where if you're getting a piece like Chase Young, you could have sent something else out to supplement areas of need, and they didn't do that. That's why it doesn't move the needle for me. Not that I don't think Chase Young is a good player. I do think he's a good player, and I think he's going to bookend nicely with Bosa. But when you have your bookends, right, what good is a bookend if the shelf, the wall behind the shelf isn't strong enough to support it? Right, when these guys are going after the quarterback with, a lot of these stunts that they're doing and the way they've changed the defensive line and they're playing gap scheme with these guys and this and that, slowing the amount of time it takes to get to the quarterback, and you're playing 10 yards off the ball, you're just leaving it open. Quarterbacks are just going to keep throwing it. The book is out there. The blueprint is out there to beat this defense. So tell me what Chase Young is going to bring to the table to offset teams throwing the ball quickly.
Well, throwing it quickly. I was going to say he could speed up the clock for the quarterbacks. And we've
Bosa's doing that because Bosa's winning. Bosa's winning his matchups.
I mean,
there
on one side of the field,
Bosa is right there, and if the corners can do their job and cover, it would be a sack because that extra quarter of a second would get the quarterback into Bosa's hands. It matters. It matters, and they didn't do anything to address the actual need on this team, which is to be able to kick somebody like Lenore inside where he would be better. Isaiah Oliver is trash. Teams are going to keep picking on him. While Ward is making all these penalties, teams are going to keep picking on him. You know who they don't pick on? Hufanga, because Hufanga makes plays. They don't pick on Gibson because Gibson makes plays, right? They don't target Lenore as much because Lenore makes some plays. They're picking on Ward because he commits a lot of penalties, and they're picking on Oliver because he can't stop a nosebleed.
But I think that they're also banking on guys coming back like Womack, right? And so the big knock on Womack was what he's a liability in the run game, right? And that's where Oliver was supposed to be the improvement. But if you have a good defensive line and you trust the bookends and all that, and again, I'm hoping that there's less blitzes involved now. So you implement Chase Young out there now, and you get Womack back. Womack was making plays. The games that he did play, everyone was scratching their head like, why aren't they trusting this guy more? And then it turns out, oh, well, he's a liability in the run game. Okay, well, now it's time to let the defensive line worry about the run game and the linebackers, and then let this kid go ahead and cover, and he will start making plays also because we already have seen him do that. So the reason that he was benched now all of a sudden isn't as big of a concern if the line and linebackers can play the way that we've expected them to, or we want them to. So it could still work out. There's still time for the adjustment to be made, and they're talking about his, hopefully him and Luter. I don't know what people expect of Luter. I don't have any expectations yet. I haven't seen anything, but I have seen Womack come out here and have some success at that nickel position. So it could end up working out. It could very well end up working out as long as we do something to get rid of Oliver. Then I think it's
I
a
hope
plus.
so. I know Ace Bro said that they can move Lenore to slot. They're not Womack's not playing on the outside. That's a bad move. You ain't gonna put Womack on the outside.
No, Womack should go back inside.
Womack's a nickel cover, but we're gonna find out quick too, because Jacksonville has a lot of playmakers, right? Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram. They got players that can make plays. So we're gonna find out quick if this is gonna work. But I don't know, man. I don't understand putting so many resources into one spot. When do you get to the point where you're just like, all right, that's enough, dude? Like, you had your shot to get this thing right. The rest of this stuff, the only area that they consistently get right with minimal effort is linebacker. That's the one area on the defense that they consistently get right without having to put a ton of resources into. The one miss famously that they had was Reuben Foster, and that wasn't necessarily a talent issue. That was an off the field issue, which that was a learning point for them, and they've stayed away from a lot of those guys at that point. But I don't understand. They got 6 first rounders on that defense. 6. That's more than anybody has. Like, that's a preposterous amount. And they've got a couple of second round guys. They got Jackson was the second round guy. Hargrave, I think, was a third round guy. They got plenty on that line. So I don't know.
I think
what are your thoughts?
It excited me in the sense that I view Chase Young way better than Randy Gregory, but I view Chase Young as a more complete player. He's good against the run. He can set the edge. The 49ers have been getting gashed in the run game lately. The last couple of weeks, they haven't been able to stop, like Matt said, stop a nosebleed. So it's been tough. And while Bosa has been winning his matchups, he's, one, not getting to the quarterback, and 2, nobody else is. So basically we're seeing Bosa get doubled. The center helps with Hargrave, and they're comfortable letting everybody else stay on an island versus the rest of the 49ers defensive line, even if they do blitz. I think with Chase Young's, it allows the 49ers to go back to just have the ability to just rush 4, hopefully consistently get home and drop 7 in coverage, hopefully helping the secondary, the corners who have not been great. I was annoyed. I was expecting a second trade for either a corner, a lineman, an offensive lineman. I agree with Matt. It's like the guy who goes to the gym for 10 straight years and only works on his muscle, like his biceps, and everything else is like tiny, and he's like an upside down triangle. His legs are, tiny, but he just keeps going at his biceps. That's the 49ers with the defensive line. For some reason, they just think if they keep pouring resources into it, it's going to translate into wins. I agree with Matt, especially on the sense that on a just breakdown in a vacuum, this trade, it's great because you're paying him $560,000. If he leaves, you get the pick back. It's not a pick you even started the year with. You got it as a comp pick. So it's basically free. You get him, you rent him for the year. In my opinion, I don't know why people are chalking it up to it's such a for sure thing that he's going to sign elsewhere. I think Chase Young's best place is here. I think he's going to play with the talent on this defensive line if they get it together, because right now they haven't looked so great. But if they get it together, and he's going to say, shit, why not take a 1-year prove-it deal? Let me get a whole year's worth of these numbers, and then I'll go and get like a 3 or 4 year deal elsewhere. So I think people have already chalked it up to he's going to just stay here for the remaining 9 games and then go play elsewhere. I wouldn't be so sure about it, but I was expecting an offensive line or a corner. That didn't come to fruition. I'm still happy with this in the sense that it's a complete defensive lineman to pair with Bosa, and we're not solely depending on Bosa to win these matchups and get to the quarterback. And by the way, I'm just going to say it. I am very disappointed in Javon Hargrave, and Eric Armstead is a ghost out there. I don't know who he is. The 49ers, he's gone missing since he started doing his podcast, which I'm a fan of. I like his podcast, but maybe he's too busy planning for content because he's getting gashed in the run game. He can't get to the quarterback. When he does get to the quarterback, Joe Burrow shakes him off like a loose windbreaker. It's sad to see. This man is 6'9", 6'8". What are we doing here?
He got the 2 sacks.
All right,
The
you're
sacks
right. He's
came
got
from
2. Were those his first 2 on the year? Congratulations, Eric. $80 million for 2 sacks. Which, hey, I know he's not a sack guy, but you're supposed to be good in the run game. At the very least, come through in the run game. And you're not even doing that. So the amount of money, my whole takeaway from this week especially was how many players on the 49ers defense were made the highest paid at their position at the time of their extension. You got Fred, you got Nick. I'm not sure about Eric, but I want to say you got Eric. There are so many high-paid players on these defense that it shouldn't come down to your quarterback in his 15th start, who was a 7th-round pick a year ago. You should be able to count on these people because you paid them so much fucking money that when it, nut cutting time comes and you really got to get a sack, you really got to get a stop, you shouldn't give up a 23-yard pass to a wide open receiver. Nobody's 7 yards in either direction of him. You know what I mean? Like, that's when those players need to step up. You're getting paid the big money. Perform like you're getting paid the big money. But to wrap it all around in a nice bow, overall, I'm happy with the acquisition. I think the 49ers got a really good player out of it for essentially free. Do I wish they got other players? Yes. Or other positions, I should say. But if it was this or nothing, obviously give me Chase Young. I'm going to take that in a heartbeat. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on this, Mike.
I'll say it's better than them doing nothing, I guess.
Yeah.
They had to do something.
Yeah.
The only other move would have been like fire Steve Wilkes.
Yeah.
And they're not going to do that because it's midseason.
No.
And we're not the Raiders, so it's not how that works.
Yeah. This is his best year, by the way. I'll just say it looks like he's finally got it all together. His health, his effort, which I saw Mike Silver immediately tweet out that report about how Commanders coaches and staff were disappointed with his effort and how he would quit on the team. Yada, yada. I don't buy it. I don't blame too many players if they're quitting on that Washington team, man.
No, listen, you know what that is? That's after the fact, trying to justify the fact that they only got a comp 3 for him. That's what that is. They have to justify to their fan base why they traded their 2 best pass rushers.
True.
That's what that is. Right, because Montez Sweat goes for a second, and everybody's like, I guess that, okay. And then Chase Young goes for a comp 3rd. If you're a fan of the Commanders, you're like, what the fuck, dude? I'm going to get nothing for that. Chase Young was what? He was drafted, 2nd overall?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You
go from 2nd overall to a comp 3rd in the span of 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. Like, that's not a good look, man.
That's Trey Lance bad. I'm kidding.
Actually, man, I almost wanted to watch the world burn, Mike, when you tweeted out good for the Raiders for like finding out somebody was a fraud and moving off them before committing too many resources. I was like, sounds like a former 49er current Dallas Cowboy quarterback. I'll say it on the show. I didn't want to say it on Twitter because I just didn't want that heat at that time.
Yeah. Can I just say real quick too, and then we'll move on. If you wait for Brock to play poorly to tweet out a picture of Trey Lance with no other context, you're goofy. Like, that's a goofy fucking move to do, dude. Like, that's cheesy, that's corny, that's goofy. Grow up. If you were over there singing his praise when he whooped the Cowboys 42-10, talking about he's him, I was proven wrong, and the second he makes a mistake, you're going to trot out Trey Lance, who, by the way, still hasn't even beaten a backup quarterback in Dallas. He's still 3 on the depth chart. That's goofy. Knock it off. Like, it's weird shit, man. Trey's not here. If you want to root for him in Dallas, go for it. But parading his failure, I guess, here is not going to make Brock look any better or worse. So get over it. I'm tired of seeing it.
And it looks even worse now that the guy that beat Trey out in his rookie year and, it just got benched for, like Mike said, Aiden O'Connell, who he doesn't even know what he looks like. Doesn't even know who he is, what he looks like. It's just not a good look. So it's the same thing when Jimmy wasn't playing well here, and there was just all those Jimmy stands that would just go to bat for him no matter what. It's the same people who, when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, they were like, pull Colin Kaepernick out of mothballs and off the street after 10 fucking years of not playing. It's just like, dude, you guys got to let it go at some point. Like, it didn't work. It is what it is. It sucks that it didn't work with Trey Lance. I would rather have had it work with him because we gave up a ton. He seems like a really nice kid, but it didn't. Like, y'all got to let it go. And to hold a grudge against somebody else because a player didn't work out, like, that's whack, dude. Like you said, man, it's weird. It's corny.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Perhaps the 49ers and John Lynch are putting too much stock in Darrell Luter and Samuel Womack, and that's why they felt comfortable not trading for a corner. I feel like that's going to come back to bite him. But any other thoughts on the on the Chase Young acquisition? I almost said Trey Lance. On the Chase Young acquisition, are we wrapping this up?
No, I mean, like I said, I wish they would have done more. I did hear, and I don't know if the reports are credible, that the 49ers might have been in on Rasul Douglas, but the Packers were not going to help out the 49ers in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know how true that is. It sounds plausible to me just because of the nature of, the playoff history between the two teams, but who knows?
All right. The greatest 49 says we need to stop at that caveat. Don't say your quarterback in his 15th start was a 7th round pick a year ago. Just say your quarterback in his 15th start. I mentioned 7th round pick because there's a reason he fell to the 7th round. Like, the traits, they don't magically get better just because he's a starter now. Like, there's still a reason why he fell where he fell. Were teams wrong about him? Yes, clearly they were, but we're still right about something. So that's the only reason why I bring up 7th round. If he was 6'7" and had a rocket arm and had a 4.3 40, he clearly would have gone a lot sooner. So that's the only reason why I bring it up.
I maintain that if Brock Purdy was Jimmy Garoppolo's size, he would have been picked a lot higher than he was. I think that his smaller stature was what held him back. But that's just me. Yeah. 49ers throwback says Jimmy Garoppolo is an NFL starting quarterback. He's just a backup. Yeah, that was my point to prove that how bad must Trey have been that he couldn't beat that guy out.
Jimmy's just good enough to let you down every time you trust him to do something good for you.
You know what? Jimmy's about to make a lot of money, though, being just a backup. Yeah. Somebody's going to let him carry a clipboard for another 6 or 7 years.
Yep. It's unfortunate, but hey, people have careers in the NFL. I mean, I don't want to take a shot at Josh Dobbs, but Josh Dobbs just got traded to Minnesota. Like, he's clearly better than Josh Dobbs. And obviously that only happened because Kirk got injured, but teams are always willing to take shots at these quarterbacks who might just be good enough to win an extra game or two than otherwise they wouldn't have.
I would have been interested to see Minnesota try to pry away Jameis Winston from New Orleans. I think that would have been fun. I think Jameis throwing bombs to Justin Jefferson when he came off of IR would have been a fun watch. Or maybe even a Ryan Tannehill, because I don't want to say I told you so, but so far it looks like the guy that I liked in the draft, Will Levis, looks like a pretty good rookie quarterback. He's got a long way to prove himself, but look pretty good, man.
Yeah. Man, all right. Jameis to Minnesota would be very exciting, but unfortunately that didn't happen. I think he's only signed through this year. Maybe I'm wrong. It could still happen. Kirk's contract's expiring. Jameis is expiring. Jameis is my GOAT. Jameis is one of my favorite players in the NFL. Absolutely love that man. Him dancing on crutches after tearing his ACL is one of the funniest fucking things ever.
You know what I like? I like him dancing around the little cones while the guy tries to hit the ball out of his hand, and just the look on his face while he's doing it. That he is so unintentionally funny. I love Jameis. It's so much fun.
They have the pregame speech and everybody's getting hyped up, and I think it's Demario Davis. Look at the man next to you, and Jameis crouches down and looks the running back dead in the eyes. Dude, the man is so – he's trying to go through the running drills, and there's that machine with the people, like he's running through and he's just getting beat the hell up by the machine. He's so funny, and his drills are so funny. Man,
if in the future you have a Super Bowl party, like Jameis Winston would be the guy that you wanted right there because some fun shit was going down.
Yes.
Any type of party, really.
He's hilarious. All right. Since we are at the bye week, I thought it would be fun. And yes, please hit the like button, guys. I thought it would be fun to stop, take a second, and smell the roses. I'm just kidding. Reflect on the season that is. And we're going to do an exercise where we're going to each share one thing we got right about the 49ers through 8 games and one thing we got wrong. It's not something we're going to debate, so I'm not going to tell Matt, no, you're not right on that. We're just going to share our things and chat. We'd love to hear yours as well. I'll start. and I'm going to start with Brock Purdy. One thing I got wrong about Brock Purdy, I really thought his physical limitations would hinder him a lot more than they have. I thought his size, his speed, his short area quickness, maybe even his lack of arm strength would really affect him a lot more than they have through 8 games. I know they have come to bite him in certain circumstances, but for the most part, he's been able to overcome it and play pretty well. The way he throws with anticipation, again, has come back to bite him a couple times when the receiver's not where he expects him to be. But when it works out, it's beautiful. And his short area quickness, again, his like 3-cone burst is on par with Lamar Jackson. Like, it really is crazy to see his ability to extend plays, his ability to keep the eyes downfield, his ability to hit an open receiver. I was wrong about that. I thought he would take a step back and maybe come back down to earth more so than he already has over the last 3 games because he still played really well. I apologize who tweeted out, but the 49ers offense, even over the course of the last 3 weeks on the 3-game losing streak, is still like a historically good DVOA offense. So it really is impressive to see what they've done. Matt, I'll toss it to you. What was something you were right about for the 49ers 8 games in?
You did something wrong. So you said Brock Purdy.
Sorry. Right, wrong. Yeah.
Oh, something wrong about the 49ers? I was wrong that Deebo Samuel coming into shape would have helped stave off some injury. And I know it's a freak broken bone and stuff like that, but he also had, I guess, what they were, remember when they said like, oh, he has a knee injury, then that turned into the shoulder injury, then it's just, and he was limited. And I just thought that, getting into the off season would have helped because he's traditionally had soft tissue injuries and things like that. I thought he was going to have one of those return seasons where he looked more like, 2020 Debo, 2021 Debo. It just didn't end up happening that way. And it's unfortunate because I think that, once he comes back, he's going to continue to make an impact in the way that he does on those touches. I just don't think that he's getting enough touches. I really think that Christian McCaffrey plus the last couple of games with the injury, it's really neutralized how much they utilize Deebo Samuel. And he's become more of almost like a gimmick, right? Like almost like, I hate to say it like this, but his touches remind me, they're so occasional that it reminds me of Taysom Hill a couple years ago. Whereas he's only used in very specific situations. They'll jet sweep him here. They'll do XYZ here. His actual legitimate receptions are not that much. And I don't know off the top of my head how many actual catches he has. I can look it up real quick, but I just don't know, I don't know what they're going to do with him. It seems like he's been nullified by the Christian McCaffrey signing, and it sucks.
While Matt's looking up his numbers, I will say
catches.
this:
20 catches.
20 catches.
20 catches.
I will say this: I was very disappointed with the offensive production once he wasn't on the field.
Yes.
But I would be lying to you guys if I didn't say that I now see the value of what Deebo brings to the table. Right?
Same.
He makes teams play East and West when he's out there, right? And so that opens things up in the middle for guys like Kittle and Ayuk and all that. And that's what's clearly been missing these last couple of games. These teams are sending 4, maybe 5, but they are muddling up the middle of the field, and it's forcing the 49ers and Brock Purdy to do things that they just don't do down in and down out. It's not that Brock can't throw outside the hashes. It's not that he can't throw to the numbers, but it's not what he does. If Brock Purdy were to throw 30 times in a game, he's not throwing 17, 18 of those that direction, out wide like that, like and down the field. But now he has to when Deebo's not in there because teams aren't, there's none of that like lateral threat that's happening right now. So he does bring a value that I hate to admit. I'm going to be very clear. I hate to admit that. Even when he's not getting the ball, there was that one game where he had 3 touches. They were all carries. It was 3 yards, and we still put up over 30 points in that game. Brandon Ayuk just happened to go crazy. Kittle got involved a little bit. Christian McCaffrey went crazy. But it's his presence on the field is absolutely missed. So while he may be a gimmick guy right now, that gimmick is super duper important.
Yeah. Is that what you were wrong about?
Oh, no, that's not where I was. No. My wrong thing. It's so weird. Week 1, I thought my I thought I was like, oh, I nailed it, right? Drake Jackson. I thought this was going to be the coming out party for Drake Jackson. Week 1, he comes out there. He has 3 sacks. 2 of them were coverage sacks. I'll give it to him. All effort, right? Like, but kudos to you for showing the effort of the motor. That's what we thought. They asked you to put on some more pounds and be a little bit more dominant off the edge and all that. And I was like, all right, 3 sacks week 1. This kid's going to really go out here. Double-digit sacks for Drake Jackson. Easy. I thought that. And the guy, like, I go back and check the snap count to see if he even played anymore. It's like, what the heck is going on? You go out and get Randy Gregory. I'm like, are you giving up on Drake Jackson already? All right, well, it's just Randy Gregory. And now they make this trade for Chase Young. Okay, I can't just no longer say it's just Randy Gregory. Like, they're not happy with what they're getting from Drake Jackson. Those 3 sacks. And then I went back and compared the snap count. I'm like, all right, like, how are they not using this kid more? Boy, was I even more wrong. His snap count increased week after week after week. It went from like 20-something snaps and 3 sacks. I'm like, all right, come on, we got to get him more. And then he did nothing. And then he did nothing again. And I'm like, all right, I got to go check. And there was one of those games where he had like 48 defensive snaps. Nothing. He didn't show up at all. So I was wrong about Drake Jackson. I was hoping that the kid came out and did something more, but he didn't. He hasn't. So, it is what it is. I was dead wrong about that.
All right, let's share what we were right about. And I am kind of cheating because I'm going first, but I'm taking the easiest one, baby. Not addressing the offensive line has come back to bite the 49ers in a huge way. I remember sitting after the draft and we're like, yeah, these players look good. Why didn't we pick a fucking offensive lineman? We didn't even take a single one. The only one we signed was John Feliciano. The 49ers let Mike McGlinchey walk, which think what you want about Mike McGlinchey. He's getting calls to get benched in Denver, but he at least was solid in the run game. It looks like Colton McKivitz is a huge downgrade in both pass and running protection. So I don't understand how they just allowed this to happen and without addressing it at all. The only guy they signed, I believe, was John Feliciano as an offensive lineman. So I think that's a huge miss for the 49ers. And unfortunately, something I don't even want to take credit for. All 3 of us said this shit come, July, August, September. So something we were right about in the preseason. Matt, I'll toss it to you. Something you were right about.
Yeah, listen, I don't have to touch on that. Colt McKivitz stinks, the offensive line. We all know about that. I said that shit too. I think I'm right about Brandon Ayuk being a true number 1 for the 49ers. I know some people disagree. I know that the pass bounced off his face. Everybody in the NFL doesn't catch a pass here and there. That's how it happens. We just over magnify it because it's Brandon Ayuk and because it's the 49ers and we watch them. Dude's on pace to have 75 catches for over 1,300 yards. That's wide receiver 1 in anybody's book. He's been an absolute revelation. I know that the 49ers haven't been able to get the ball to him in some of these second halves. I know, Mike, you said, hey, if you're not going to use them right, trade them away. But I maintain that they're using them to the best of their ability and that just sometimes that's not the read. That's not whatever the case may be. And the last thing I want with Brock Purdy obviously showing that he plays hero ball is to try to do the Baker Mayfield and try to force it to somebody, right? Because that's going to lead to turnovers. I know in the Minnesota game, you thought he was open. They were bracketing coverage. Those would have been interceptions. I'm telling you, teams are trying to take him away. Be that as it may with the disagreements in the game planning or whatever for him. His numbers to this point, 35 catches, 620 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 8 games. That's wide receiver 1 stuff. Touchdowns are a little low, but it's because Christian McCaffrey is eating a bulk of those touchdowns. So he's definitely one of the guys that's getting them down there. And on, one of the best throws that I saw from Brock Purdy was with a guy in his face. 3-man rush, they dropped 8. Guy in Brock Purdy's face, and he hits like a corner route to Ayuk, like 25 yards downfield, and Ayuk is able to pull it down. Thing of beauty, man. And it seems like Brandon Ayuk's open on a lot of those plays for sure.
Yeah. I want to know how pathetic the offensive line is. Like Matt said, that was a 3-man rush, and there was a guy in his face.
Yep.
But
then 2 seconds.
Huh?
Sorry, I just said within 2 seconds he had a man in his face.
It was instant. Yeah, it was
3
instant.
versus 5.
But what I was going to say with the Ayuk thing, right? It's like just when the game is getting down like that, like we've seen it time and time again. Just force him the ball. Who cares at a certain point, right? And they just don't do. If he's your wide receiver 1, that's what people define a wide receiver 1 as around like a league wide, like from a general consensus, right? Because you were absolutely right. The numbers bear out to, hey, this is wide receiver 1, right? But when the game is on the line, you need a play. You just got to trust the guy to beat the guy on him. Let him beat the coverage or just give him an opportunity to do it. And that's what the Niners don't do. So it still makes people doubt that Brandon Ayuk is that guy. He still looks like just a guy on a good team when the offense is clicking. And so he's never going to get that real respect as wide receiver 1 because they don't say, hey, we need a play to be made. You're the guy. We're going to throw it to you no matter what. We've seen games where freaking up in Buffalo, Stephon Diggs, like balls to the wall, like forget it. We're just gonna go up and throw it to you. We've seen Kirk Cousins have these that big comeback game, right? The biggest comeback I think in NFL history. They were down like 30 points or some shit like that. They set that record last year, and he was like, forget. I think it was it was Justin Jefferson. It wasn't Diggs that year. It was Justin Jefferson. It was like, hey, we're just going to go out there and throw it to him. We got nothing to lose at this point. And they just force fed him. And they, one guy on him, two guys on him. Like they were doing everything they could. So yes, while they were bracketing Brandon Ayuk, there were some pockets there that they could have tried to get the ball to him. But we just got to see what happens at a certain point in time. And this team just doesn't do it. I don't know if it's Kyle saying no, like we're not going to be that team. We're not going to be that team. But we got to do something sometimes. And as far as something that I was right about, I predicted a down year for Nick Bosa. It wasn't because of the contract, but it was because of what I saw down the stretch of the year, you know, where he had this streak going with every game he had a sack, every game he had a sack. But it was like a lot of those games, the sacks were coming on like the last 2 drives of the whole game, where he was just MIA all game. He was getting the pressures. Let me be clear with what I'm saying when I say he was MIA. He was getting the pressures. He was beating his guy. Let me not insult him. But the sacks were barely coming. I mean, barely coming, you know? And they even have mic'd up segments with him saying, I just want to get a sack. Like, I just want to get a sack. Dude, then you don't have to say it. But I felt like the writing was on the wall. Forget the holdout, forget the contract and all that stuff. Team said, that's the best guy they got. We are going to take him away. No matter what, we're going to take him away. And so I just felt like this was going to be a year. We would have been lucky if he got 10 sacks. And that's, we're on pace for what? He's got 2.5, I think, right now. Yep. He's on pace for 5 sacks this year. Yep. Hopefully it gets better. I'm sure he's going to have a game come up at some point where he's got 2 or 3 sacks in a game. It's bound to happen, but I want to see some consistency. I know it's just a very small detail in the game, right? Sacks aren't everything. I completely understand it, but I still want to see the sacks go out there for the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. I want to see it.
2 things real quick. One, watching that game in person on Sunday against the Bengals, how many times, if you guys go back and watch the film, Brandon Ayuk was one-on-one. They didn't even have a safety up top. They just put a corner on him and said they're not either going to throw to him or he's not going to beat our guy. I mean, we were begging Purdy to just throw it up for him and let your man go make a play. Because at the end of the day, if that's your best receiver, you got to trust him to do it. We haven't even seen him have the opportunity outside of week 1. Week 1, Purdy trusted him to make plays. And what did he do? He had his best game ever. He had 3 touchdowns or whatever the hell he had, 2-3 touchdowns. Like, it was a fantastic outing for Ayuk. And 2, with Nick Bosa, it's very frustrating because everybody, you know, says, well, they're double teaming, well, this and that. It's like, yeah, but teams do everything they can to stop Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, you know, these other players, and they still wreck the game. It's like we need to see that from Nick Bosa because he's getting paid more than any, like Mike said, more than any non-quarterback. So we got to see that. We got to see him step up. And I think we will. But by the way, Mike, I'm surprised you didn't call Wilkes, being right about Wilkes. You were very skeptical about him in the preseason. So credit to you because it might not work out here.
Yeah, no, I got a little thing that I'm holding back a little bit on Wilkes just for now, just a little bit. I will say these next 2 games for him are going to be huge, and then if things don't change, I'm going to let him have it. But I feel like he's kind of in a tough spot right now, so I'm gonna let it go for now. But yeah, no, I definitely, you know, a guy with a year and a half of defensive coordinating, he's got almost a 20-year NFL career, and he's been a DC for a year and a half. That was not a good sign at all. But we'll see what happens. But damn, you said something else that I wanted to touch on right
Bosa,
before you said,
versus Garrett.
Oh yeah.
Watt.
So Garrett and Watt, in particular have someone who was really effective on their defensive line at pursuing the quarterbacks as well. And these guys don't always get the shine that they get, but they are very, very effective also. Maybe it changes with Chase Young coming in. I'm not just trying to make excuses for Bosa because I think that teams are still going to plan. But if I don't know if you guys have the game on in the background or not, but this guy for the Steelers, I can't even remember what his name is right now. He is all over.
Highsmith, Herbig.
Yes, that's Highsmith. That's his name. He is all over Levis in this game. All over him. I mean, Levis is completing some passes. Some of them he's just getting beat up. Everett, I can't say what I wanted to say right now, but chill out. All right. But it's like they do have it coming from both sides. So you have to pick your poison because the motor is high on the guys opposite of Garrett, you know? So we got to see it. We can't hear, these guys are tired. These guys are tired. Kyle saying that at the podium or and to the media is just a damning, it's not a good look. We're not. I hope that goes away with the addition of Chase Young.
Hopefully, because damn, is it frustrating seeing them almost get there.
You can't chip both of them.
Yeah,
you can't chip both. You can't double both of them. Like so now it's going to be pedal to the metal, and I think that they're going to look boom and look right on cue. Number 56 sacks Levis, just like that, right now, just happened. So, and this is what he's doing out there. We need a complimentary pass rusher. I'm sorry, but we do. And so I think it's going to come. I think we're going to start seeing it.
Well, 49ers hopefully just got one to pair with Nick Bosa. All right. Is there anything else you guys wanted to cover that we didn't talk about? Bengals bye week, Chase Young.
Yeah, man. It's going to be interesting to see what Steve Wilkes does. I know that Kyle Shanahan talked about having a private meeting with him to discuss whether or not he needed to come down from the booth and call plays. And if they thought that was going to be something that they, assumed would be helpful for the team, they would do it. Man, I feel like they're trying to find any excuse they can to just try to make this work for the rest of the season. I have never seen so many different comments, questions, concerns about a guy that wasn't going to get himself shit canned at some point. And I want the 49ers to come out and dominate against Jacksonville. But if they don't, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Steve Wilkes, because there's only so much runway that you have before you just have to eject. So it's going to be really, really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know how credible the report was. Somebody said they were maybe going to think about taking defensive play calling duties away from Steve Wilkes. If that's the case, why the hell is he there? I don't believe that one, but it's something that's been brought up. But there's so much smoke around this that you have to assume that there's the kindling of a fire. So we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, it is concerning, and maybe it was a red flag how many stops this guy's had in the NFL. It's like, how come a team wouldn't want to keep him if he was that talented of a defensive coach? I don't know. It is what it is, but that's – go ahead, Mike.
I think that Wilkes is such a different – he's a teacher. They're not going to – guys, they're not going to take him out the booth. We can forget that. They're not going to take him out the booth. I listened to a John Lynch KMBR interview yesterday or today. I don't remember when I listened to it. And he said it's going to be what Wilkes wants to do. He is used to watching. He's a secondary coach, guys. He's used to watching the game. I call it the God's eye, like from above. That's what he does. What is him on the sideline going to do? He doesn't have that youth and vigor that Saleh and D'Amico had. It's not there. He's not going to develop that fiery passion that those guys have. He's not the animated guy. He's not smacking guys on helmets and all that stuff. He's not going to do any of that. So in the booth, out of the booth, it's not going to work. The only thing that it could possibly do is him talking to position groups on the sidelines a little bit more. That's the only thing it could possibly do. That's the only difference. So that's not what the problem is. It's play calling and dialing up blitzes at the right time, not blitzing. Can I ask you guys this question? Just very simple. Why do teams blitz in the NFL? Very simple question. And it's not like I want your guys' honest opinion. Why do teams feel the need to blitz in the NFL?
To stop a play immediately by stacking the quarterback, I would imagine. You want to basically guarantee an effort because the risk is you get beat on the back end if you don't get there in time. So you're putting your money on getting there in time, and you're basically going all in on we're going to get to him before he can get to us. But if he gets to us, we're kind of screwed. So I would imagine the goal of a blitz is to get to the quarterback before anything else can happen. Stop a play, blow up a play.
I would say it's to, one, give quarterbacks a different look, and two, to try to funnel an offense into where you want them to go.
That's a good point to you.
And I think that, maybe that's something to that effect. But one of the things that I've noticed a huge drop off on with the 49ers with Steve Wilks, and I directly attribute it to Steve Wilks because as Mike has pointed out, he didn't bring anybody with him. And it's the only thing that's changed about the defense was him, is that this team is not wrapping up and tackling like they used to. They're doing that same bullshit that a lot of bad teams do, where they're trying to thump somebody with the shoulder. This team has pride itself on getting to somebody, wrapping, and then letting somebody else clean up. And they're not doing that. And I've noticed it from Hufanga. I've noticed it from a lot of the defensive linemen. I've noticed it from Oliver. I've noticed it from Ward. I've noticed it from, any number of players, right? The only person that I see that consistently wrap tackles is Fred Warner. And that to me is something that directly goes against, is a check mark against Steve Wilks. Because if you are trying to blitz and you're trying to run these stunts and you're trying to counteract what the offense is doing, but you're not teaching your defense the fundamentals. Mike says he's a teacher. He's not teaching or reminding, at the very least, these players that, hey, man, we're not out here for these big ass hits. You're definitely not, because you're playing this soft coverage and you have everybody in front of you. Who the fuck you think you're thumping with your shoulder right in front of you? Go and wrap them up and hold them there so somebody else can come and clean it up.
I should have emphasized, because you were absolutely right. I did say he's a teacher. Let me clarify. He's a teacher of the secondary. So that's and the secondary cannot. Your defensive lineman can't have the mentality of secondary players. So let me, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a very, very different world. Very different world. We aren't seeing that Kosaric fire in these defensive linemen right now. We're not. It's so lackadaisical. It's disgusting. So it's just we got to be mindful of what's happening and why. And so I agree with you. Like, you're seeing the Steve Wilks effects on this team. So that's good. But the reason I asked what you guys' thoughts were on why teams blitz, you guys both gave really good answers. The Niners aren't getting that when they do blitz. Regardless of what you think is supposed to happen when you blitz, a fast sack, confuse the secondary, confuse the quarterback, funnel the coverage one way and force them to go that way. None of it's happening. No sacks from anybody in the secondary all year long. Not one sack from anybody in the secondary, unless you want to consider Fred Warner a secondary player. No sacks from anybody in the secondary. It's not working. And
Hufanga should have had one.
And he just stopped. He
stopped.
Fucking stopped.
He just decided
he
to
stood
dance
there and
around.
Looked around like he looked around like they were doing the national anthem at the beginning of the game. Like, just come on, bro. Like, you can't do it. And I know it was frustrating to you, Matt. I completely understand what you're saying, but if the blitzes aren't working, let's get away from it. And that's why you got to go out and try to find another bookend. That's why. Fuck the blitzing. Let's let these 4 down linemen go out there and do what they need to do, and then let's go home. Let's live and die with 7 people back there covering what they need to cover, and we're gonna make our bread and butter that way.
All right, we're gonna get into our chat pack question of the night, but before we do, we gotta pay the bills. So we'll be right back after a message from today's sponsor. Just want to take a second to thank today's sponsor, MyBookie. As a bettor, you demand perfection, and MyBookie delivers. NFL, college football, and a brand new cash out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. The first 2 legs of your parlay hit, cash out early and use the funds on another bet. Or you could let it ride for the chance of a bigger payday. Join the MyBookie family for a season filled with odds boosts, free bets, and super contests. To get started, all you got to do is super simple. Go to mybookie.ag right now and register for an account for free. That's right, it's free. And whenever it is you're ready to make your first deposit, just use promo code HIVE. It's right here on the screen, HIVE, to grab a welcome bonus on the house. That's our gift to you for being a part of the 49ers Hive family. That's promo code HIVE, HIVE, to claim your deposit bonus. And for a limited time, you also get a free chip to use in the MyBookie casino. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Now let's get back to the show. Go ahead, Mike.
I got one more question for you guys before we get to this chat pack. I know about the touchdown streak. Have you guys been disappointed with Christian McCaffrey the last 4 games?
I was saying that. Yes.
But I said 4, not just the 3 losses. I said 4.
Fourth one. Dallas? Yeah. Because he fucking turned the ball over too. He's gotten that under control. At least last week, he didn't turn the ball over. I know he played hurt. He toughed through it. So it's really hard to kind of fairly grade him. But still, I would expect a little more from somebody who's
highest paid running back in the NFL.
Highest paid running back, odds to be an MVP, offensive player of the year, yada, yada, yada. I need to see more, in my opinion. Matt?
Nah, man, I'm not disappointed. I'm disappointed in the fumbles, but with how Christian McCaffrey has played, no, I'm not disappointed, man. I think it's easy to like try to scapegoat because of how good he was prior to prior to the last couple weeks. Like the beginning of the season for him was electric, right? I don't know, man. He already has, I think he's almost at 1,000 yards total scrimmage yards already. He leads the NFL in rushing this year. He's got 652 yards rushing. He's got 9 touchdowns on the ground. He's got 4 touchdowns through the air. He's got 292 yards receiving. So you're looking at 900 and some odd yards of production through 8 games. I can't be mad at that. You're looking at a guy who could be 2,000 all-purpose yards. Like, the fumbles are one thing, but if he can keep that under control, that'll be it. I think it's too easy to get caught up, especially the last couple of weeks, because of being behind. Dallas was going to try to take him away from us anyway, and everybody else got off. Brock Purdy had 4 touchdown passes that game. That was a George Kittle game off rip. So, and then you look at the Cleveland game, he goes out with the injury. I don't know how that oblique injury is affecting him. He says he's good, but players always downplay that stuff. And they're playing behind the sticks. They're playing behind the sticks. Listen, people lie.
No. I just want to say that he never said he was good. He said it doesn't matter. If I'm out there, I'm expected to perform. I love that answer from him. Okay, and so I wanted to give him his credit for that answer.
Perfect. Even better. So I don't know how that's affecting him. But I can't say that I'm disappointed when he's doing what he's supposed to do. And even with the defenses focusing on him 100%, he'll still have 1, 2, 3 plays a game where he's very dynamic out there and making a difference. So I'm not mad at it. Particularly when you look at, no Trent Williams out there, which is a huge loss. They're playing from behind. You take away some of his rushing yards. I don't know. I can't say that I'm upset with him.
It is tough because he's being asked to do so much. Like Matt said, he played every snap. He played every snap the Minnesota game after coming back from injury, playing through an injury.
Yeah,
I would imagine he played most of that Bengals game. So
Briscoe brings up a good point. Have you seen him on the sidelines sometimes? Like his eyes look sunken in and shit. Like he looks blown up. Yeah. And it would be a perfect opportunity to use Jordan Mason. I'm tired of seeing Elijah Mitchell's ass. He had another 3 carries for 2 yards against the Bengals. Like, he's trash. I don't know why they keep rolling him out there, because I feel like Jordan Mason can come in. Like we talked about, Mitchell takes time to warm up and get into the game and start hitting those hammering runs, right? It's going to be 3 carries for 2 yards, and then all of a sudden he gets a 7 or an 11 or whatever. But Mason can come in and have those carries pretty quickly. So I'd like to see more Jordan Mason. I think we've seen enough from Elijah Mitchell, and just spell Christian McCaffrey, and make it like not so obvious. When Elijah Mitchell's in the game, it's clear that it's going to probably be a run.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, chat pack time. Guys, hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, spending your Thursday night with us. We're going to keep this one simple. Chat pack, question of the night. Who is the most famous person you've ever met?
Fuck. Damn. This is a good question. I've met a couple of famous people. I'm probably gonna have to go with Busta Rhymes.
Wow.
I think Busta Rhymes. I think Busta Rhymes is probably the most famous. It would be him or I've never met her in person, but she sent something to my mom to give to me. Nia Long. I don't know if you guys know who Nia Long is.
What'd she send?
She's my Hollywood crush. So her dad took my mom out on a date. I think I told you guys this story on here before, right? Where I work for a pest control company. I've always had a crush on Nia Long since I was young, right? So I work for a pest control company, and I get to this house, this huge house, and in Trenton, and I get up to the attic, and there's like a shrine, like all these movie posters and everything. It's this older guy. Wait till I tell you guys his last name was long, but I didn't connect the dots. So it's this older guy, and it's like just posters of her and pictures and graduation pictures and all this stuff from Nia Long. And I go downstairs and I'm like, you got a thing for Nia Long too, huh? He's like, well, kind of. It's my daughter. And I was like, I am so sorry. No disrespect. I am so sorry, dude. But he passed away a couple of years ago, and she made it a point to give my mom the obituary for her father's service, and like, make sure Mike gets this, please. So that I haven't met her in person, but you know, the correspondence and everything through her dad, it was pretty cool.
That's dope. That's cool. I like that.
But as far as like physically seeing, I think Busta Rhymes is probably the most famous. I've met Fat Joe, I've hung out with Joe Budden. Yeah, I would probably say Busta Rhymes is the most famous person I've actually sat and like talked with. And this guy, he almost broke my neck. It was pretty crazy. So
okay. Matt, do you want to go? You want me to go?
Bro, I haven't met that many famous people, to be honest. It's not something I go looking for. Like, I just don't care. I think they're people like everybody else. So, like, the celebrity thing is what it is. I took my sister to WonderCon a couple years ago. So I met like some pretty big YouTubers. Like, I met Sean Evans from Hot Ones. I've met Rhett and Link, who have like a big YouTube channel. I met Becky Lynch from WWE. Like, I have a picture with her. I think the one that was the most naturally occurring happened when I was younger. I was at Ozfest 2003. It's a festival. I remember specifically because this was when Smirnoff vodka was on like the come up, like the brand or whatever. And they had a fountain that was Smirnoff vodka. You would just take your cup and put it under, and it was all vodka. This was the old west of this was 2003. Like, it got crazy. But I remember being, just going around, and this was at times when it's like a heavy metal festival, so there's all kinds of stuff going on. But there's times when bands like Killswitch Engage weren't that big, stuff like that. And I remember being on some type of pathway, and there were like all the trailers and buses where all the artists were or whatever. And I just remember standing like to the side, having a drink or whatever, and David Draymond from Disturbed walks up and just like starts chatting us up, like just seeing how we're doing, how we're enjoying the festival and stuff. So I dapped up David Draymond from Disturbed one time, and that was pretty cocool. But yeah, man, like, I just don't know that many celebrities, or haven't met that many celebrities, I should say.
Yeah, that's dope. I don't know too many here. I think my graduation night of high school, I went to Maggiano's here in Santana Row, it's a little Italian spot. I saw Frank Gore. He was on a date, and I was like still in like my cap and gown and everything. And my mom was like, "You got to go say hi And I was just like, I'm so sorry. I don't want to ruin anything. I waited the whole night I'm like, I got to do it. I got to do it. I went up and I introduced myself, and he was super cool about it. He let me take a picture, but the fucking lights in there were so dark. It just looks like I'm with, a random person. You can't even see him. You can't even see me. It's so dark in there. I'm like, God damn it. I don't want to use my flash. This is 2012, so it's not like phones were as good with the dark pictures and everything. Also, Jerry Rice at like a 49ers meetup event, he was there. He'd probably be the most famous. I imagine most people who know of football know Jerry Rice, but I feel like if you've gone to enough of these events, you just end up meeting him because he's just always there because he loves the 49ers. He just lives and breathes the 49ers. But yeah, I guess both of them are Niners.
You guys are baseball guys, right? I know Matt is just Matt.
Yeah.
So how famous is Gary Sheffield?
Oh, he's pretty famous.
Yeah.
He's pretty famous.
Would you say he's more famous than Busta Rhymes?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then never mind. I met him. I didn't know who he was. He was walking around like this
in the sports world. Yeah, sure, but not overall. I would say Busta Rhymes probably more famous.
Gotcha. He was walking around like this really nice suit, and I was at like this cigar fest. It's called CI Fest or CI International, and I had no idea who he was. I was all excited because I was watching this show called Sons of Anarchy, and like they had like a booth there, so I took pictures with some of the guys and everything from Sons of Anarchy, and then he was standing there, and he was like, "Hey man, try this cigar," he gives me a cigar, and everyone was giving out cigars. So I'm like, why is this guy in a suit giving out cigars? And so we continue walking around, and like I'm just walking, talking to him and everything. I was looking for my dad, and someone came up and asked him for a picture, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like he was clean shaven, right? Like he's fit and everything. And then we get to the other end, and he's got a whole booth. He has some kind of endorsement. He has a Rocky Patel cigar. But I didn't know it was him, but I was walking and talking with him like he was just a regular person in there. He wasn't like all full of himself or anything. So I thought that was pretty cool too. And I was like, I don't know shit about baseball, but that's pretty cool. Like this guy's pretty cool. So
that's dope. My dad used to have this company, and he would go to like people's houses and go over. Dad, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I believe it was a landscaping company. It's been so long. I've heard the story a million times. But he would go to all of like the local athletes. This is like in the 90s, 80s, 90s. Willie Mays. He has a picture at Bill Walsh's house like 2 weeks before he died. And he's, they're taking a picture together. My dad had Bill Walsh sign the shirt he was wearing, and he still has the shirt and everything. And it's awesome. My dad loves telling that story. Cool. So yeah, a couple weeks before he died, unfortunately, but he says Bill Walsh was cool dude, very nice, very hospitable. So,
you know who I almost met that was a fucking prick.
I do know because I was there with you.
I actually have stories about pricks.
I'm ashamed.
Cool.
I'm ashamed because me and this dude share a birthday. I don't even know if I want to say. You know what? I'm gonna say it. Ronnie Lott was a dick, dude.
Yes, he was a dick. Man,
Ronnie Lott's a dick. Yeah.
Oh man, I almost feel like
Zach,
it's blasphemy to stay on the Niners feed.
So bad. Like Zach was right next to me.
Yep.
I was like, hey Ronnie, how's it going, man? He didn't even look up. He just stonewalled my ass.
Yeah.
I wasn't asking him for shit. We were walking by each other. It was like whatever. Like I wasn't trying to get a photo. Nothing.
It was just
I just said hello, and that motherfucker did not even look my way. I'm like, fuck you, then, dude.
I don't know if this is the same weekend we were all out there, but
it was.
It was the same weekend. Yeah, he was outside, and I'm not the guy. Like I don't fan out over celebrities, but like I would want to take a picture. But
you don't try to sneak into the team hotel to get up to their floor.
No, I'm not that guy. You guys are lucky I don't have my soundboard. Shots fired, right? But so he's outside with a couple of other players, and I recognize them, and I don't want to just take a picture like from my phone from across the parking lot. So hey, Mr. Lott, can I just snap the shot? And I could have done it without asking, but he was like, no, I'm not doing that. My bad. Okay. And I didn't do it, out of respect. Like I asked for a reason. And then there's two other celebrities that one of them I wanted to meet. My mom wouldn't let me. She worked at this hotel that's like hidden in the woods in Princeton. And there was a US Open going on, and Andre Agassi was staying there. And I like tennis, so I wanted to try to get an autograph, and my mom worked in like the reservation. So when she couldn't find a babysitter, they would put us in like a room and like let us stay there. And I wanted to meet him, but apparently he lost and like he trashed his hotel room. Like, I mean, there were holes in walls. He busted up the TV, the pictures and everything on the wall. And when I was asking her if I could go and meet him, she was like, "Oh, absolutely not. Like, we had to call security on him. Like, we had to call the cops. He's going on a rampage." And then the other one was I went to Whitney Houston's house in Jersey, same company, Pest Control, but she wasn't there at the time. It wasn't her. So, but I almost met Whitney Houston. She would have definitely been the most famous person I ever met if she was there that day.
Damn.
Zach, I know you took your picture with Frank Gore and said it was too dark so you couldn't see him. Speaking of dudes you can't see, John Cena follows me on Twitter.
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere else with it. That was
I know. That was a dangerous line there, brother.
No. Anybody in a dark room, you ain't gonna be able to see. It had nothing to do with that, my man. I was trying to transition into the John Cena "you can't see me" joke.
Yeah. How'd you get him to follow you? That's pretty interesting.
I don't know. I don't remember what it was exactly. I just know that he followed me and he's liked some of my stuff. I don't know if it's because I'm a vet or what, but I don't know, man. He actually, like, honestly, if you listen to some of his stuff, he's actually a really intelligent dude, and he's like a very positive person. So, like, I respect the shit out of it, dude. So he was so involved. I can't remember what movie it was for. It might have been Fast and Furious or whatever, but he was like trying to promote the movie so heavily that he learned how to speak Mandarin to be able to promote it in China.
I remember that.
It's so crazy. Wow. Like, he's so dedicated to everything that he does. I don't know. It was kind of cool. I thought it was kind of cool. And he used to have a house down here in San Diego. I don't know if he still does, but he used to have a house down here. And like, I've seen him out and about at different points or whatever, but never like went up and talked to him in person or anything.
My dad's correcting the record. He's texting me. So the name of the company was Quality Lawn Services, and he was there 5 days before Bill Walsh died. And he had the mini helmets, and Bill Walsh signed all of them. Like, he signed a bunch of them. Some of that shirt.
I remember when he gave that to you.
Yeah. That's right. Well, he gave me a football, the 94 signed football team.
Yeah. I remember when you got the Bill Walsh signed thing. Yeah, that was awesome, dude.
My dad's awesome. So love you, Dad. All right.
Shout out to Papa Zach. That's what's up.
Yes. I think that's going to do it for tonight's show, guys. I smell dinner ready in the other room, thanks to Ash. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't already. The 49ers are at a bye week. They're at a literal impasse in the season. We'll see where they go from here. Hopefully up. I mean, on a 3-game losing streak, the only way to go is up. We will be back, I assume, next week to preview the 49ers-Jags game. So catch us then. Follow all of us on X. Our handles are on the screen. Mike, let the folks know where to find you if they don't already.
Yeah. You guys can give me a follow right there at the bottom of the screen, like Zach just said. And check us out on the Patreon page there, patreon.com/NB9ERS. We usually go live for the games. I don't know how that's going to go next week because I plan on being at the game. I will see if Mike NY to the Bay can hold it down and go live. So hopefully he can. I know a lot of people aren't going to be able to see that game because it's on the East Coast. So we would like to try to make sure we provide that for you guys. But patreon.com/NB9ERS.
All right. Check them out. Go subscribe. Matt, carry us out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great night of talking 49ers football. It feels nice to get, some progress out of there. And I can guarantee you one thing, 49ers ain't losing this weekend and the defense ain't giving up any more yards. So enjoy your football Sunday. It gets started early. Dolphins play the Chiefs in Germany. That should be an interesting kickoff. It's 6:35 Pacific, so 9:35 Eastern. It's wall-to-wall football all day long. Can't wait for it. Can't wait to just have to worry about my trash fantasy team rather than worry about the 49ers, stressing me out. But, yeah, that being said, thank you, Mike, as always, for joining us. Zach, you always hold it down. Go enjoy your dinner. Everybody here, thank you for joining us as always. And until next time, go Niners.